Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone, if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Melanie on the podcast. She's an IPE physique pro coming to us all the way from the Midwest. But most importantly, she is our current guest. She's just recently competed in a couple of shows herself. One 2 weeks ago was actually at the high school that I went to, which, believe me, is kind of shocking to hear about. But hey, it is great. But before we get into all that, Melanie, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, like I said, we're not going to talk about that weather. So before we start to depress everyone, why don't you just first off give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're at right now?
Yeah, I can give you a shortened version, but I think it started more when I was like younger in my middle school years. I had gained just a ton of weight, those puberty years, and it's hit me a little rough. I actually remember one summer I had gained a bunch of weight, and my mom had this nutrition book in my house. I'm not sure why. Don't even ask why we had it. I'm sure it was like a $2 find at a rummage sale. But I read that book front cover to cover and learned about calories, how to be in a calorie deficit. And at 13, I put myself in a calorie deficit and I went from 160 pounds to 140. Just simply by understanding again, like what calories were, what I was consuming. And that was really like intriguing to me. I loved learning about that. Later, though, in my 20s, I had gained a bunch of weight. I was drinking really heavily and eating just unhealthy.
She was an alcoholic, everyone. No, I'm
I
kidding.
was, yeah, that's a true
It's South
story.
Dakota. That's just called being a normal person. Come on.
Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna go
Trust
back
me,
a
I've
little
talked to
bit.
Wisconsinites, and that's the biggest thing where you're just like, dude, are you drunk right now? Like, that's just, yeah.
100%, yeah. Okay, so I'll start here. But in my early 20s, I started drinking really heavily. I was eating out like every single meal and gained weight back. I was actually close to 170 pounds. And I'm about 5'5", just to put that into perspective. At that point, I got engaged. I decided, of course, just like everybody, I was going to lose weight. And I started doing, it's called Beachbody. I don't know if you've heard of that, but basically,
My
like,
fiance is doing that right now as we speak downstairs. So
I love Beachbody. Okay, people dog on Beachbody, but I loved it. I found a lot of workouts that I really enjoyed. It was quick, it was easy, and like she has you put your food into like little containers. It was so simple, so easy to follow, and I lost probably about 20 pounds doing that leading up to my wedding. In 2019, I got married, and we were alcoholics, and my husband, he actually ended up going to jail twice. He went to jail the night of our wedding, and he went to jail about 2 months after our wedding for assaulting me. And that actually is what drove me into weightlifting. Um, During that time, I had kind of a choice to head down a path of continuing to be an alcoholic, continuing to eat really shitty, or find a different outlet, and that's when I chose weightlifting, and I actually stopped drinking heavily. I still enjoy a glass of wine, but I quit drinking every day and started weightlifting. I'd get up at 3:30 a.m. and I'd weight lift or weight train for 2 hours, and that's really where I spent my time. In 2019, I decided also I wanted to compete, and I didn't follow through with that. Kind of similar, you and I talked earlier. It was really hard to be on the nutrition. I just couldn't do it. I could do the weightlifting. I could show up at the gym daily, but tracking all my macros, eating less was really hard for me. So I fell off that wagon pretty quick. About 2 months after trying to train, I decided to back out, and I continued to weight train for the next 4-ish, 5 years. And then back in April, my coach actually approached me and asked if I had ever considered competing. And I gave all the reasons why I hadn't and didn't want to do it. And then, like, another month later, he asked me if I would train for a show. And that's kind of where I started. That was in April, and I decided to jump on. I needed a new goal, and that was what took over my life for the last 6 months.
Well, the number one thing I gotta ask you is how the hell do you get up at 3:30?
I was like in a psychotic state. Like, I'll be honest, my husband and I just got married. I was supposed to be in this really happy place. And instead, my husband assaulted me twice, and I had to rescind 200 wedding invites. So, stress and all of that kind of drove me to like not sleep well. So I was up anyways. Yep.
Oh, believe me, my fiance is getting our wedding is gonna be in July, and she's pulling her hair out basically, and I'm just I'm there to provide the support, but anytime I try to delve a little too deep, I learn that she has some claws on her too. So that's I just kind of stay in my lane right now, and I just imagine my happy place when she complains
Yeah.
about the wedding. But you're doing a great job, by the way. Just in case she hears me. But so yeah, no, I
It's a
get it.
lot of stress. Just don't assault her the day of your wedding and you'll be fine.
I mean, that's a very high bar to set. That's a very
Recommend.
high bar to set. So I don't know if I can not, but I'm joking, everyone. But not, and I'm not joking about assaulting everyone. It's just the humor through all this stuff. But no, that's crazy, and that's yeah. That definitely changed the mood of the podcast. When you mentioned that first, I was like, oh, no, and that's nothing. That's believe me, I've heard plenty of stories like that and thing, and it just goes to show, how, and a lot of times it does take a traumatic incident like that to really get people motivated to make changes in their lives and do different things, and that's something that we've heard a lot more commonly on the podcast. But when you were growing up, were you familiar with the sport of bodybuilding at all, or was it something that was completely foreign to you?
It was completely foreign. I even now I told my family that I was doing this and they were like, what the hell is that? Like, why are you doing that? My sister and I, when we drove to Minneapolis the other weekend, even like on that drive, I felt like she was kind of like not making fun of bodybuilding, but when you hear about like what goes into it, it's so absurd to someone who's never experienced it. So she was kind of laughing at some of the things I have to do leading up to it. And then when I got there and she watched the show, literally right after I won, she came backstage and she's like, "This is the best thing I've ever gone to." She's like, "I will go to every one of your shows because it was just so cool to watch." So I think when you haven't been involved in it, it is such a weird concept. But then when you go to it and you see the work that these people put into it, it really changes the perspective.
So you just got me thinking because everyone, if you didn't hear this in the intro, she went to the high school that I went to for her show. It's a show that they do every year, and I got the dates mixed up, which is why I wasn't there. But funny story. So my senior year, they have a thing there called the man pageant, where it's a rip on the other pageants, where they get the guys to do like a skit, they get them to do a thing, the senior guys, and then they get voted as like the man of the year is a quote unquote thing. So for the talent portion, I did the Chris Farley, Patrick Swayze, Chippendale skit from SNL, and I have footage of that I will send you. So I rocked that stage that you rocked as well. So just
Yeah.
just just letting you know. So I'll even share a link to it if everyone wants to see it and laugh at me and my best friend from high school, Connor Weatherby. He was the Chris Farley, I was the Patrick Swayze, and yeah, I think we did a pretty good job there. But just hearing that brought it up, and I was like, yeah, I actually posed on that stage as well, along with these bodybuilders on here. But I mean, when you were getting started, I always love to ask this question because everyone's genetics are different. Everyone always has that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And then everyone has that one body part that just drags behind. They have to train to oblivion. What was one body part that really took off for you? And what's been one body part that you've just had to drag behind this entire time?
Sure. No, that's a good question. So naturally, or my genetics, I lean out in my upper body very quick, and I could literally do 5 pound dumbbells for every upper body movement, and I will have shredded arms. So it's a good thing, but it's frustrating for me. I do have a big lower half, but it was very hard for me to get like striations in my legs. So that's the part that dragged for me. I could do 200 squats and like have no striations still. I have thick legs. It's just for some reason that's where I carry fat, and that was a big struggle for me throughout my entire prep. Even my feedback that I just got back from both of my shows was that my legs needed to be leaner.
See, that's the thing that I never get with this is that it's always leaner, 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 no matter what. Like I've talked to Olympia winners, and it's still leaner, leaner, leaner. It's like these people are already knocking on death's door as it is, and you're telling them, no, take it a little bit further. Let's see how it goes. But no, it's just again, it's part of the sport. It's the look that they
Yeah.
want, but still at the same time, it's like, guys, these people are about to die on this stage. Let's push it
Yeah.
a little bit further.
And I could see it going in. I had told my coach I already knew that my legs were going to be what I got feedback on. I was, according to the scans I did, at like an 8% body fat. So it is hard to like fathom as a woman, like, okay,
Oh, that's rookie numbers. You got to be at like 2 or 3. Come on, now I'm joking,
that's
but
men. I mean, there are probably girls at 2 or 3, but man,
I've talked to one and I was like, dude, if you got a paper cut, you would die.
yeah. I I was struggling. I might have been lower. I don't know how accurate those scans are, and I didn't do one like the week of my show, I'll be honest. So, but yeah, so that's been hard, and that's now going into the next season. What my focus is just to get hopefully like 5 to 10 pounds leaner than what I was at this season.
And I mean, you just started in April. So many people, they do it for years and years before they step on stage and they really get that look. But like, what was that like just going through? I mean, hang on, let me do my college math that I've learned. So what, 6 months? You started 6 months ago, you started competing and you've already got a pro card and everything else. What's this been like just in a 6 month journey? Because I know some people are hating you right now, being like, she got a pro card in 6 months and I've been doing this for 10 years.
I know. It's hard to say what it's been like. So it's been a journey for sure. It was a mental struggle throughout the entire 6 months. I will say like June, July hit and I was a fucking shit show. Um, because that was about halfway. So the beginning of the prep, I was really like revved up and excited and on board, and I was still eating quite a bit of food. I was at like 1,800 calories, losing weight, and then mid prep, I plateaued. I mentally like couldn't see the finish line, so I was like over it. I'd already been in it for 3 months. I was over it. So it was a struggle. I definitely had a lot of moments where I would text my coach and be like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. Not until probably the week before my peak week was I like fully checked back in. So from June to September, I had to like constantly be out of my house, which is hard to do because then my house was like a mess. But if I was in my house, I would eat. So I'd go on like 2-hour walks just to stay like preoccupied and busy. Sorry, I feel like I'm going long-winded right now, but yeah, it was hard.
Take as
I
much
don't
time as you want with these. I hate listening to my voice. So when I'm recording these or when I'm editing these, the more you talk, the better. Trust me.
Yeah, okay. I will say like I don't think I did anything cutting edge. I don't think I did anything that put me into that place. I think I had a good coach who knew what he was doing. I will say that my energy levels were never so depleted that I was like hallucinating or like feeling and just like shit. I heard so many horror stories about people in prep and feeling so crappy. And my coach, he's a registered dietitian. I think he does things differently than some of the old school methods of getting ready for prep where you're at like zero carbs for months. I never did any of that. So I think that was key. Um, I think the training I did leading up to that was key. I did a lot of bulks from 2019 to 2024. I mean, I would bulk up 10 to 15 pounds and then I would cut those 10 to 15. I'd bulk up, cut, and I was powerlifting. So I think it was a combination. I did some really good training leading up to the show, and then I had a really good coach who didn't force me into such a deficit that I was like losing my mind and depleted.
I mean, that's just the Midwest way to just bulk up, and then cut, every year. Because with the winter, people don't understand that. With the winter, you got to put on your 5 to 10 pounds just to survive. Because can you imagine being this lean in 2 months?
No,
Yeah.
no. So, and that's funny. It's always the winter months, that's when you bulk up. Whether it was intentional or not, I would always add on about 5 to 10 pounds throughout winter. So,
It's a survival technique. Everyone doesn't get that isn't from around here. Because you can tell when I've recorded my podcast during the winter because then the face will be a little bit chunkier and then a little. But then as soon as you get to the spring, then it starts to even down now. And I'm just about to enter my 5 to 10 pound bulking phase myself. But how
yeah.
did you keep your mental sanity? I mean, I know you said that you struggled with it a lot, and I'm not going to say that you completely kept your mental sanity, but how did you try to maintain somewhat of a mental balance during all this, especially being your first prep where a lot of people don't know what they're getting into?
Ooh, good question. I think I went all over. Like, I don't think I did it right. I think I learned a lot, and I know how I will approach this next prep that I do much better. My initial reaction was I wanted to cut everybody off and just like isolate myself in my house, and it was totally the wrong move. I think that's when and July hit, like I talked about earlier, and I was really struggling. And that's when I was isolating myself. I didn't want to talk to anyone, and I like tried to stay in my house, but that's when I did the worst because in your house, like for some reason mentally, and this might not be everyone, but like I just eat everything. I'm hungrier when I'm home. I think about food more when I'm home. So, I had to change that. Like, I didn't realize it for a few weeks, and then I was like, "This is a mistake. Like, I need to get out." And I started um, doing more. Like, I'd go on walks more often. I have 2 dogs, and I would take them on walks 4 or 5 times a day. I have a 12-year-old son. He likes to disc golf, and I would always turn him down prior to this when he asked me to disc golf. And now all of a sudden, I'm disc golfing every weekend with him because I needed to get out of the house. And
So is
it
he
made
just thinking because of bodybuilding, my mom spends time with me?
I know, no, that like, if you were gonna ask me this, my biggest takeaway is I did not spend enough time with the people I love and want in my life until this prep. That was my biggest takeaway is I can be less lazy and spend time with the people I love. Like my dogs look forward to those walks every day now, and they expect 4 walks a day, and I enjoy going on walks with them. My son and I, we bonded throughout this entire time once I learned how to spend my time to like get through prep, if that makes sense. Um, so that
I just got to interrupt you. How shocking it is to hear that like you learn to spend more time with the people that you love. Where 99% of the time I hear the exact opposite because you get so into prep where then the people are like, "Oh yeah, I have a lot of friends off of prep, but then when I'm on prep, like I talk to one person that's my coach the entire time." So it is refreshing to hear someone with the exact opposite reaction where they're like, "Yeah, I realize that I got to spend more time with the people that I care about."
yeah, 100%. Like I'm not beating myself up. We all like learn as we go through life, but like I didn't realize how lazy I was. I thought I'm a busybody and I never can sit the fuck down. So like when I had a goal, I needed to hit 10,000 steps a day. I needed to not eat food. Like all of a sudden I'm like, okay, Max is my son. Let's go disc golf and be gone for 2 hours. That way I don't have to eat food. So it was a little selfish, but through that selfish act, I found that I learned that I want need to spend more time with him. Let me go back. Sorry. I now I'm stumbling. Cut. Um, through that though, I found I can spend more time with my son and I enjoy that time and he enjoys it. So I don't know. I'm glad that that's refreshing for you. I honestly like taking a step back. I'm so grateful for this experience for that one reason. Like I just did not realize how much I put things off and just say no to things like my friends or my son or my dog. So,
Well, it's so refreshing because I've heard the exact opposite where we've talked to people who've had like interventions from their families being like, we're afraid because like you don't talk to us anymore, you don't spend any time with us. So then to hear the opposite, yeah, it really is just so refreshing. But did you have any idea what show day was going to be like at all, or was it something where you're just like, I'm just going to see what happens?
absolutely not. I'm such an introvert. I am not like a stage person. I would never have put myself on stage in my life. So I was really anxious for those moments. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do. I feel like I'm going to black out and just they're going to be telling me what to do and I'm not going to hear it or register it. So I was really anxious. On the way to Minneapolis, I was actually telling my sister, like, I think I messed up. I shouldn't have done this, but I already spent all this money. And as soon as I got there, I don't know why, my nerves like calmed. And it was helpful to have people on stage with me. I don't know if I would have enjoyed being by myself on stage, but I didn't feel anxious. I felt very calm. I went through all my posing. I felt very like centered, and my coach helped me with that too. He was in the audience, and honestly, I just zoned in on him and listened to him. He would call out like if I needed to fix something, and I would just that's all I heard. So I enjoyed it, and I left Minneapolis, and I told my sister that I'd be competing again. I was like, I'm going to continue to do this.
What was your relationship like with posing? Because that, to so many people I talk to, that is like the hardest thing to do in this sport.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I chose the class that I chose. So I was in women's physique. I don't think I would ever do figure or bikini. Wellness is a hard maybe. I'm just not very feminine by nature, and I'm not those girls. Everything they do is so feminine and almost like a dancer esque type movement, where women's physique is a little bit more. I don't masculine's the word that I'm going to use, but I don't think it's masculine. It's just the only word I can think of.
You could say more non-feminine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more non-feminine. Um, it was interesting to like learn the poses, but since women's physique, there's really only like 6 poses that you do. It didn't take as long as I thought it would take. Now, if you put me in heels, I think I would have struggled quite a bit more.
I've always said if they want to make more money, make the men and the women all divisions wear heels, and then just see that, because that would be, I mean, that'd be one of the only times that I would pay money to like actually watch the Olympia, would be like if they did that. So just a little idea for them out there, and plus you get to do the front double bi and stuff like that in physique. It's like,
Yeah.
who wants to do figure and bikini when you can't do that? I've always said that and like maybe let's do like a back pose, or even the abs too. Like those should be ones that like every division should do regardless, just because it's like you get into bodybuilding to show off the guns. Let's be honest. Like that's a big part, at least for the bros. I don't know how it is too much for the ladies, but let's be honest. And when you're like you and you said you can do 5 curls and then they get nice and flattened out, it's like, come on, that's first of all, you
Yeah.
got me jealous when you said that, because the gym bro in me is like, God, I wish I had that problem. But hey, everyone's body is built differently. But when they announced her name and you realize, did I just win my pro card? What was that moment like for you?
It was the best moment. So it was really funny. I went out on stage, they lined us up, and there was 5 girls in my class. And I honestly, at that point, was happy with 5th. And I didn't think I was going to place. The women I was competing against had some of them had already won pro cards in prior shows. They all had been competing for years, and you could tell when they went on stage, they were very fluid in the way they moved, and they did it so gracefully, and I just wasn't, because it was my first show. So I just really did not expect to place well, but I was happy with 5th. And in my head, I'm standing there, and my sister videoed me, and I can even see it in my expressions. I'm like, I'm good with 5th. They didn't call my name, and I was like, okay, 4th, that's awesome. And they didn't call my name, and I like was already just mind blown that I would even be in the top 3. So I was pretty stoked. And then when I was the last one there, like, you can just see my face. I'm looking at my coach like, "Are you fucking kidding me? This is real?" And I just it was a great moment. It was probably one of the best things that ever happened. Like, if you wanna go top 5 moments in my life, that was one of the top 5.
Well, that's when the announcer says, "Wait, we've made a mistake, Melanie. You aren't supposed to be out here. Can we please substitute so and so?" No, that would be. I mean, again, that's just my sick sense of humor playing out. But no, that's great. And what did you have to eat to celebrate?
So on my first show, I didn't have any celebration meal because I was going right into another peak week. So I literally left Minneapolis with my sister right after the show ended, and we headed back to Sioux Falls. And I take that back. I came home and I had a glass of wine that night. That was my celebration. But I went right into another peak week and did my show here in Sioux Falls. And after that, I had crumble cookie, and then I had Chili's. Do you know their new mott sticks with like the sauce?
Yeah, yeah.
They've been all over my For You page on TikTok. So my mom and I went to Chili's and I got some of those. And yeah, I felt super sick. It was great.
Are you a pizza fan?
I like pizza. It's not one of my top
Okay, because
things
I was
though.
gonna say next time if you're ever in Minneapolis, Black Sheep Pizza is like the best pizza I have ever had. So I always recommend that to anyone else in town. But yeah, I mean, and again, this shows how much of a psychopath you bodybuilders are that you just have wine after the show instead of celebrating. But no, that's the drive and the dedication that I just am so impressed by. That's why I love still having bodybuilders on after all these years and talking to them, just because they have that drive that the normal person looks at and just says that's crazy. But to bodybuilders, they're just like, hey, it's a part of the sport. But after your final show or after this weekend, did you at least indulge yourself this weekend?
Yeah, yep. That's when I had crumble cookie and those mop
Oh, okay,
sticks.
okay, yeah,
Yes.
just making sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw you smoked a cigar as well, which is I enjoy
Yeah.
that as well. I give myself a monthly cigar. That's what I allow myself to do. That's really my only vice. Well, that and I gamble on occasional sports games, but I never do over $20, everyone. So I'm not a degenerate gambler. I will say that. But no, I enjoy a good cigar, and it's rare that you see a woman actually enjoy a cigar as well. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's awesome. So
That was my first cigar ever.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I inhaled it like twice. It was crazy.
Oh God.
I really felt it. I was like, "Ah."
So now I got to tell you this story. I've never told this story on the podcast, and because you brought it up, I'm going to have to do a quick tangent here and tell it. So, one of the first times I ever smoked a cigar, granted, I've smoked one cigarette in my life, and that was like 2 years ago, just because someone had one. And I was like, I'll try it because I've never tried it before, just see what it's like. I didn't really enjoy it, and I haven't, smoked one since. But my
Yeah.
first cigar was when I was in high school. I think it was like a junior in high school, and me and my friend went and got like a really expensive one, like a $20 one from a cigar store because the friend was a senior, so he was 18 because you had to be 18 to buy them. So we got them, and it was a long one, and I smoked all of it within about 10 minutes, not knowing that is not what you do because I was just just
Yeah.
constantly going in. So we were going to like pick up some girls, I think, to go to Applebee's or something like that, and as soon as we picked them up, now luckily this is like 2 blocks from my house. I was like, yeah, you're gonna take me home right now because I can't even I couldn't even think straight, and then they dropped me off. I couldn't even walk in a straight line up to my driveway, and then I just had to lay down for the rest of the night. And this was like at 7 o'clock, so my mom came in and she knew that something was wrong. And then I was like, "Yeah, I'm not moving." She thought I was drunk, but then I was like, "No, I just smoked a cigar way too quickly," and then I got that just nausea feeling where I felt like I was going to throw up the entire night. But then I woke up the next morning and I was fine. But yeah, everyone, if you're going to smoke a cigar, I will just tell you, especially the first time, take your time with it. They are not meant to be smoked as quickly as possible. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. I didn't try to smoke it as quick as possible, and I did not try to inhale it, but, like, it's just like it's instinct to inhale it, so it was very hard for me to just hold that smoke in my mouth, but I did think the pictures turned out really cool, like, I was
I will say a good cigar picture is better than a good cigarette picture. I don't care what anyone says. If you can do it right, that's the main thing about it. But what have been some of the reactions that you've gotten from people in public just seeing you up and about? Just because when you see a bodybuilder woman, especially, it's not something that you see normally, especially in South Dakota, where I don't think it's as popular as it is in other states. But what's that reaction been like? And is it? I sort of compare it to being like a mini celebrity, where you're going to draw people's attention just because it's human nature when you see something out of the normal to be fascinated by it. And what's that been like for you?
yeah, I mean, it's, like, good and bad, so it makes me feel really good, because it's typically positive things that people are saying,
Well,
right?
and I
And
will
so
say, being Upper Midwest, it's got to be a lot of passive aggressive too. So you're not really knowing that they're.
right,
Yeah.
yes. So, like, at the gym I go to, I feel like a little mini celebrity because I do get stopped, like, left and right, which is great. Like everyone means well, but at the same time, it can be a little overwhelming, especially when I'm there to get like my workouts done. So I have modified when I go to the gym slightly just to avoid some of that. And I think those compliments are always the best ones because they're fellow gym people who, I don't know, they realize the work that you've put into it and they appreciate it. Whereas, like, when I'm out and about with just maybe, like, my family or other people who are not into the gym, I think it's almost like you said, passive aggressive comments. Um,
Like,
A
oh,
lot of
you
like
look great, but I would never do that myself.
exactly. And a lot of like older generation, like it's men for some reason. Older men like to make jokes about like my capability to like lift something up. Oh, I bet you could lift this car up. Like something like that. And I'm just like, I get it. I know you're trying to make a joke, but like when it's nonstop all the time, like, okay, it's enough. Um, but otherwise, I think it's great. I think everyone, for the most part, means well. So I just try to appreciate it. I think throughout prep, when you get towards the end of prep, you're a little lower on energy and your patience is a little less. That's when I was getting maybe more annoyed with some of that. So I just wore a big baggy clothes to not have to worry about it.
Did your son kind of learn like, hey, as we get closer to the show, maybe I should just stay in my room a little bit more and avoid my mom?
He he has been the best and worst person for me. He is either very critical or very like any little piece of like positivity he gives me is like the best thing ever because I don't expect it. So at the beginning of this prep, left and right, he would humble me because he would just make fun of every little thing I did, tell me I was fat if I
Oh,
ate
yes. I
anything.
love this kid.
Yes, he was just it was so funny, but he just hated it. And then you could just it like just churned. I don't know what happened. I think he saw other people getting really excited for me. And I kid you not, like the week before my show, he had to do pictures. I was sending daily pictures to my coach, and I didn't have my tripod. So I asked him to take the pictures. And I did a few poses, and he looked at me and he goes, Mom, he's like, they're cooked. And I'm like, "What'd you say? Like, let me record that. Like, you just said something nice to me." Like, oh, it was just the best moment ever. I don't think he'll ever admit to saying that, but it was really it made me feel really good that he actually felt like I was gonna do well. I don't know.
I will say I am 30, so I'm one of the last of the millennials. And then, like you said, you're 33. I just hate this new generation slang. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I just hate it. It doesn't make any sense. Our slang at least made somewhat sense where you just say something. I can't even really remember anything in particular, but like bet and cook and stuff. And you're just
yeah,
like, what? Come on. So
yeah. He
it seems
doesn't
like it's
use a
gotten
lot.
dumber over time because like cook is like well how he said like oh that's fire which I never said in my entire life. I just heard some people say that, but like it just seems like it's gotten dumber down. So pretty soon it's going to be like oh that's fry or something like, and you're just like
Right. I luckily know what that meant. I think some of the stuff I hear, I'm like, I don't know what that means or how to use it. But when he said that, I was like, oh, I know what you meant. Like, um, but I agree. Some of the stuff like skibbity,
oh
I don't know
god.
what it means.
I don't even know what it means either, but when I hear it, I just yeah. And then like the first time I was with a coworker and he's like I think he's like 21, so he was like saying like, "Oh, bet," and I literally thought that he was like trying to bet something with me, and I was like, "What, dude? We're at
Yeah.
work. Like, I'll bet with you. If you want to make a bet, like we can do it after work or like in the parking lot where I'll be like, yeah, I'll bet you on this game or something like that." But like he's like, "Oh no, that means like, yeah, I'll do it." And I was like, "Then just say yeah, I'll do it." Like,
Right. Yeah. I agree.
I hate to become where I'm getting close to that age where I'm just gonna say these damn kids all the time, but yeah.
Just wait till you have your own, and then it gets 1,000 times worse. So,
Well, I just want you to imagine our kids. So I'm 6'3" and she's 6'1", so our kids are going to be absolute giants. So I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. Yeah.
wow.
So
1 dang
she was a
girl.
volleyball player, yeah, and then she did. She was a dancer too. So yeah, it's. She's also a dietitian. So when you said that your coach was a registered dietitian, I had flashbacks where all the times that we go to eat, and she goes, "Do you really want to eat that?" And then I always respond to, "Do you really want to walk home?" So I win that round at least then not. But I'm joking everyone too, of course. But yeah, so we have a friend actually they're both the same height that me and my fiance are, and their kid I think the kid is projected to be he's like 2 years old already. He's projected to be like 6'9", and the kid's already like half as tall as his parents, and he's like 2 years old. It's scary. And then they're like, we're worried about him though, because like he's a roughhouser, and it's like when you're like twice the size of the other kids that you're gonna be playing at in the playground.
Yep.
So they got to make sure that they, tone it down a little bit. So we'll check in. I'll do a recap in 4 years and be like, yeah, the kid accidentally like trampled a kid to death or something like that. But hey, that kid was born for athletic glory. So we'll see
Yeah.
how that goes. But tangent aside, as you can tell, I'm very tangent oriented for some weird reason today. But
You're fine.
just with all the things that have happened in this last year, even 6 months, like we talked about, what has this journey been like for you mentally? Because everyone talks about, the physical changes that happen, and they're great, and that's the only thing that like the general public notices. But just the mental strength that you've gained as well. What has this whole 6 months experience been like for you mentally?
Yeah. So it's been I think I've said this a few times, but a roller coaster. I started this year out. I had gained quite a bit because I did a bulk. It was unintentional at first, and then I made it intentional. And I was up to close to 160. And in January, I was like, okay, I'm going to do my own cut. And I started that process. And then I started prep for the show in April. But mentally, like, I think I've just learned so much. And I think my focus this year was just like on the positives. I think it's really easy to get hung up and just get lost in negativity. And that's just not my personality. So I think going back to what I said earlier, like the time that I spent with the people I love, my son, my dogs, my family, the discipline I learned in just not just tracking food, not just the training, but like discipline and like so it just translates into so many different areas. I don't know how to explain it, but like the discipline I learned from having to track my food and having to hold myself accountable just translated into so many different areas of my life. And I can't be more grateful for that. Yes, there were hard times. Yes, I struggled mentally many days. But I think I just learned so much, and the most valuable thing, of course, again, was the time.
Yeah.
I can't say it enough. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but like I got mad at myself when I realized how many times I turned down the people I care about because of my own laziness, because I prioritized other things in my life over them, and how selfish it took me being selfish and needing to get out of my house and getting steps in for me to spend time with those people or
Oh,
yeah.
trust me, if I could put this podcast on a loop of you just saying those last two sentences, I would, because that's the most important lesson. You can say that as many times as you want, because that's an important lesson that people, I think, a lot of times you hear that as people get older, they understand that, like, we're talking, like, in their, like, close to death, and they finally realize that, like, hey, I should have spent more time with the people that I really care about. And it's great that you learn that at such a younger age, because I know some people, yeah, that I've talked to that are in their 60s and 70s that they're just starting to realize that. And it's like, well, what can you do? You only got like 10, 15 years left. So what at the best. So, it's good that you realize that early on. And if there's one thing that people could take from this podcast episode too, I would say that it's like spend more time with your loved ones, because yeah, that's the most important thing.
Do things that they love. Like I don't know, like I just can't say it enough, like
How
you
good of
need.
a disc golf player are you?
I'm terrible. I suck. I suck. I've not gotten any better. But I go and just have fun. My son, he's pretty good actually. He does really good. He likes to criticize me as well in disc golf. So I think it's fun for him to see me just suck, basically, because I'm better sometimes at other things than him. Like if we play games and I win, like he does not handle that well. So the fact that he does better than me at this is a win for him. Um, yeah, but I can't say it enough. I get out of your house, go spend time with people if you're in prep, and just let things slide. Like, don't give a shit about your house getting messy. It's a short term thing. And if you can get out of your house away from food and have something like occupy your brain, that is my best advice for anyone going through prep. That is 100% what I will do in my next prep is find every reason to be out of my house, be moving around, doing something active, and with hopefully people that I love and care about.
Can I just say, okay, I hate frisbees and I hate disc golf
Yeah,
just because of this.
you're
I
so
was
bummed out.
a Division 1 recruited player. I was incredibly good at every sport that I played at. There's never been a sport that I like really struggle. I mean, even bowling, if I went for a couple times, I remember I would average then like in the like 120, 130, even if I haven't bowled for like a long time, just because I just have that in me. But I cannot throw a frisbee straight. I just can't. it
so hard.
curves every single time on me. That's the one thing where I look at it and I'm just like, every other sport I can do at least, average. For the average person, I can be average at. For Frisbee, I just can't throw it straight. I don't know how, I don't know why, but we took a class in high school and we went and did it. And I still do some Frisbee because there's a lot of stuff by where I live, but like, I'll still do it with friends every once in a while. But like, I always am like either second worst or worst just because I just can't throw it straight. I don't understand. So I got to try to curve it as much as I can to try to get it to, go in. So I got to aim like 10 feet to the right, but still, yeah.
It's all about where you release it and I know it sounds easy, right? It sounds like, okay, I just got to think about when I release it, but I'm the same way. Mine either curves or I tend to like arch my hand up. And so the Frisbee goes like straight up into the sky and just plops back down. But my son has it. I don't know how he even learned how to do it. He has a cousin who plays pretty well, and has gone to a lot of tournaments. So I think some of it's from him, but he has it down. He throws it and it goes so far in a straight line, exactly where he wants it to. And I'm like, I'm just in awe every time.
I will tell people, if you haven't seen it, like, I've watched some professional matches, like just highlights of them on YouTube, and it's entertaining to watch. Like, people wouldn't think it would be, but the ones that are really good at it, that like can skip it and just make it like go around trees, and then you're just like, what's going on here?
How do you get it to go one direction and then curve and like you did that on purpose? I don't understand.
Some people, I tell you. But so, like you said, you're done for the rest of the year. What are your plans now? Do you have a show in mind for next year? Or are you just going to wait for the off season to figure it out, or?
So I have some ideas. I'm going to do a really short off season though. I'm going to do a couple months off season and I'm hoping not to gain very much back and then come in about 10 pounds leaner than where I was at. That's the goal. I have a few shows in mind. I'm going to keep that secret though, because one other thing I took away from my prep is that I will not tell people I'm in prep. It was, you're so consumed by prep already. It consumes every moment of your life. And then to have to talk about it with every single person because they know you're in prep was very overwhelming for me. So I do have some shows in mind. I will be in a show in 2025. I'm not sure where yet.
Absolutely. And when we do talk to you a year from today, what are some goals that you'd like to have achieved? Like, what's one area of your physique that you hope that you improved on the most, other than, leaning out your legs a little bit? Is there any other area that you'd like to see improved on? Other than the whole body, let's be honest. But
So you want, sorry, say the question again.
so, like, is there other specific area other than your legs leaning out that you are
Oh.
looking forward to changing, other than like your whole body? Because everyone would be like, "Oh yeah, I want my whole body to change a little bit." But is like, is there any specific area other than your legs that you're looking forward to growing a little bit more? Or?
So legs, of course, are number one. I want more definition in my legs. I would like to come in with like a leaner midsection. I'm lean in my midsection, but I have like a thick waist, and I don't know if it's even doable. Maybe that's just the way I am genetically, but I feel like if I can somehow narrow that down a little bit, that would be ideal. Maybe it's really just broadening my shoulders then and growing on my upper body. If I can't get my waist to decrease.
How are you preparing mentally for looking in the mirror and not seeing yourself this lean in a couple of weeks?
That's a great question. It's already been hard. So I'll be honest, this weekend I just went to, like, I housed everything I wanted, and drank wine, and I can already see and feel that. I think the most I can do is just remind myself that I can get back to that level when I want to, and that's not realistic. I don't know what else I can do besides that and just stay positive. I wish I had a better answer. I honestly, this is my first time having an off season, my first time doing a show. So I think everything's a learning process for me. And I think sometimes I'm just going to have to learn the hard way and I might just hate myself for a minute and then be able to come back with a better answer next season as to what I'm going to do to not have that happen.
No, I've asked this question to every single guest that I've had on, so I will tell you what the main answer that I get all the time is: when you are maybe feeling bad about your body and when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, just remember how shitty you felt when
Yeah.
you were at your least. Just if you remember that just for 1 second and then realize that, like, oh, hey, I don't have all these aches and pains. I'm not waking up to go to the bathroom 10 times at night, and I'm not constantly tired and hating, almost hating my existence. So you got to remember that stuff too. That like it comes with the territory, and I think the media has done a bad job with advertising people that are in the stage lean as being like, oh, this is at a healthy part in their life, and it's like, no, it's not. That's one thing that I think they need to bring more up awareness to, is like, no, this is not at the healthiest phase of their lives. And because then a lot of people see it and they're like, oh, they must look like that 24/7, and it's like, no, they don't.
Ish, yeah. I think too, like the fact that I know I'm going to go back into another season, honestly, has allowed me not to get too hung up on it. I'm early yet, so that could change. I'm only today's Monday. I just competed Saturday, so I don't think I'm really feeling it yet. Um, the other good part is I'm doing such a short off season of only a couple months, and I'm not planning to gain a lot back. So I'm trying not to allow myself to leave that prep mode, because this is such a short reverse diet. And then I'm going right back into another prep. So I feel like I can't really relax too much on everything. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, and then lastly, how are you doing time management? I mean, like, you're a mom, have a job, you're a bodybuilder, like even two of those three things is enough to drive a person crazy. So how were you able to do all three without, I mean, like we talked about this many times, but like you struggled mentally, but like how, even just time management wise, because that's not even about struggling mentally, it's just about having enough time on this planet, which a lot of people don't have to do all three of those things.
I feel like, again, I'm going to almost repeat myself. So I actually work two jobs. I
Oh
work,
God.
yeah, I am a risk consultant for a bank. That's my full-time job. I do a home health care job on the side. So I do one overnight a week, um, with this home health care job. My son, I have him, and then actually am training a couple girls as well on the side. So it's been busy. I will say there's some pros and cons. So during prep, it was nice to be busy at times, because then you're trying to avoid food. You're trying to avoid all these things. So when you're busy, it's good. Um, what I'm going to circle back to though is allowing myself grace to have a messy house, to maybe not have everything perfect. I'm very type A, very OCD, so I like everything a certain way. And through this process, I learned that I need to allow some other things to kind of maybe not do as well, while I focus more on, my prep, etc. Um, so that was a challenge, but it was something I learned too along the way, and I'm very grateful for, because I am such a type A person that I'm very anal about my house being a certain way, and I've allowed myself to like relax in other areas that I've previously not been able to.
Yeah. And
I think
that's,
that answered
yeah.
your question, I hope.
No, absolutely. No, you've done a great job. And again, everyone, I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below, and buyer beware, you will get inspired to, get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But Melanie, thank you again for coming on and sharing your journey with us. We had some technical difficulties on the beginning, which, I mean, everyone, when the blooper reel does get released, because the blooper reel is already like over an hour long, so I'm gonna have to like cut it into segments because no one's gonna watch the full hour of it. But when it does get released, you will see what I'm talking about. But again, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.